Live. Today we have Paul Lombard from Hedge for Video. And we will be back with you in a few minutes. I have to do some maintenance, and we'll talk to you then. Let me just do this. Here we go.
If I look this way in camera, am I looking into the camera or
Yes.
little down? So this is good.
Yes,
And
it's
this?
very, very good.
And this way?
Let me put our...
But sometimes you dip your eyesight a bit.
That's because I'm doing things.
No, not you, just me, because of the way the camera on a MacBook Pro is positioned.
Right. Well, we're live now. We're live. We're back on the air. So, no, I will definitely be doing things. I have to monitor chats and a bunch of other nonsense. So, if I'm looking down, it's not because of I'm not interested. It's because I'm doing something else.
I always wondered why Apple put the camera up there instead of, well.
Let's talk about that for a second. So hi everybody. We are Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live, and today we have Paul Lombard from Hedge for Video, and we're going to be talking about his company, his recent acquisition. Well, he has integration with Frame.io, plus a recent acquisition with Jasper, who we've had on Final Cut Pro Radio. But we're going to talk about Hedge mainly, because that's what I'm most familiar with. But so as far as the camera on the Macs, all of them are 720p in 2019, except for the iMac Pro. The iMac Pro is the only one that has 1080p video. Now that is ridiculous for 2019, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, my laptop is 2013, so.
Well, there you go. I have an older laptop. Even my laptop, 2016, 720p. Now, why is that? Why is that That's ridiculous in this day and age.
Better camera.
Well, even if it's 1080p, they maybe could scale it down if they were streaming live, if they had limited bandwidth. But I want a 1080p camera. I'm not using that now. I'm using my GH4 actually. Which is what I use for these live streams. But anyway, so hey, Paul. So, Paul, where are you located? I don't even know.
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Okay, that's why the sun's going down in 30 minutes. Yep. That's absolutely. So Hedge. It used to be called Hedge for Mac, which I have a hard time breaking that. So now it's called Hedge for Video because you're cross-platform.
Or just Hedge. Yeah.
Or just Hedge. Yeah, that's true. But on Twitter, I noticed you changed Hedge for Video, and then also your website is hedge.video.
Yeah,
now.
It is.
So let's talk about Hedge first. So I have Hedge. I bought it in December. So for people that don't know, explain what Hedge actually is, what it does.
Hedge is a very easy way to create multiple backups of your footage. We wanted to make sure you don't need to use Finder to create backups and aren't held back by Finder into creating multiple ones instead of just one backup. So we wanted to create an application that allows you to do 2, 3, or even more backups at the same time. That's what it does.
But it's more than just that. I mean, you have checksum verification, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I think that's one of the first things that I noticed when I bought it. One of the reasons I bought it was if I'm out in the field and I have to copy cards quickly to get the cards emptied, I want to make sure that it's a proper copy of the media. So can you explain checksum verification briefly? I mean, a lot of the people that are listening are not technical savvy, perhaps as savvy as a software developer might be. So explain what that is.
Well, it's not so much about checksum verification, but more about validation of the copy in total.
Okay.
With the amount of files and file sizes you have typically in video, chances are that something goes wrong, and they're a lot larger than with regular files on your system disk.
Okay.
So the good practice is to calculate if a copy has been done right. And one of those mechanisms is checksums. Checksum is sort of a mathematical fingerprint of your file that stays identical if the file is identical. And if just one byte switches in a file, then it generates a completely different checksum. And you'll know the file is not good.
Wow.
Just one of the things, because checksums are really heavy to calculate. There are a lot more checks within Hedge to make sure your footage is good and fine enough. Because checksums only look into the file itself, into the footage, but not not to the container itself. So the file name could be different, or the creation date could be different, or the modification date.
Okay.
Not just about checksums. You need to have controls for more security checks for more than just the checksum.
So one of the things that people always comment on about Hedge is there's two things, simplicity and speed.
Yeah.
So how do you go faster than, how do you achieve the speed versus just copying in the Finder? How does that happen?
Well, it's on par with Finder.
Okay.
It depends a bit on your storage media. Finder is a very, very good algorithm. And
Okay.
it's built, there are a few issues with Finder for video production. Finder is built for copying on internal drives mostly.
Okay.
It's used for system files. It's really good. And there's no checksum published, so you cannot create a paper trail. And it doesn't multiplex. So if you want to do multiple copies of the same file, you have to do them one by one. And that's a bit of a shame if you want to do multiple copies at the same time. You should be only reading a file once and copying it multiple times at the same time.
Okay.
And Finder cannot do that. So Finder by itself is very, but for video production, it needs just a bit more than the standard feature set. So Hedge added that to the mix, I think. And we actually do not focus that much on speed. We don't want to start an arms race. We think the simplicity is way more interesting.
Right.
And make sure you don't have any mental ballast when using software. There's no steep learning curve. There are a lot of advanced features in Hedge, but you don't need them at all times, and you shouldn't be burdened by learning them, for sure.
So people are when they talk, I'm a Final Cut Pro guy, so when people talk about making a disk image and stuff, and I always bring up the fact that now you realize that that's not being verified. That copies.
Well, if you make a DMG in disk utility, it is verified.
No, in Final Cut.
In Final Cut, camera archive.
Camera archive.
Archive is not verified. That's right.
Now, do you think that the Final Cut Pro team will ever have a verification option? I mean, it slows down a little bit with verification, probably, right?
Well, yeah, a little bit to quite a bit. It depends.
Okay.
No, I don't think they will add it. But we have been looking at ways to create a camera archive directly.
Really?
We haven't found time to build it yet because we think it's a very elegant solution to a problem.
Right.
The whole bundle allows you not to lose any files.
Right. I see people all the time when they have problems by copying the camera card into the Finder without copying the whole structure and everything.
Yeah.
And I see that all the time where they have problems, something doesn't open right or whatever, and you go and find out they just copied the files over from the camera card without copying the structure. So why is the structure itself important? Why can't I go in there and just grab video files and bring them over? I mean, sometimes I guess you can, but sometimes it'll bite you apparently.
It depends on the camera.
That's what I thought.
Cameras that create QuickTime files like .mofs or MPGs,
Right.
They carry the metadata within the file. So they don't need an external structure. It's like with BWF in audio. Same thing. Metadata is encapsulated in the file. And the same with RED as well, and some RAW stuff. But with some other formats like MXF, there are sidecar files created. And to properly make use of the complete information that is stored, you will need the file structure, but you also need those metadata files. So we always recommend, if you use something like a Sony card or a Panasonic card, create a complete copy. If you shoot on DSLRs, most of the time it isn't needed. So it depends.
Okay. Now, one of the things that Hedge you can do is you can copy the same file to multiple destinations. So is that any different than doing that in the Finder if I copy to different places with Hedge?
Let's say you want to do a single source to 2 backup drives,
right?
Which you should be doing.
We should be doing, absolutely.
Yeah, you should be doing. In Finder, that takes 2x time because you have to redo it. And even if you start it at the same time, Finder does not have the intelligence to know you want to read just once and write twice. Hedge has that intelligence.
Oh, that's one of the things I was talking about for speed. So if you're copying with Hedge to 2 or more locations, it's going to be faster than the Finder doing the same action.
Twice as fast. Given that your 2 destinations are somewhat on par, it will be twice as fast. And there's no rocket science in there. It's just the way we build Hedge purposely for video production.
Right. Which I like.
It works, yeah.
No, I like apps that are specific for video production. I have a couple apps that I use that are not. I mean, Disk Warrior I've been using for years. It's a fantastic application. And I use NeoFinder for my database across all my hard drives because I literally have 50 or 60 separate hard drives. And NeoFinder is a database that keeps track of everything on every hard drive. I can update it very easily, and it's been around for a long time. So I use that for my main database.
It's a great app, and it's been around for ages.
Since CDs. It used to be CD Finder. And then it went to DVDs. Now it's even, keeps getting better and better. And then, of course, Disk Warrior is just like an unsung hero. But boy, it saved me a few times. Mm-hmm. When I first started doing raids, I had a RAID 5 that something happened. And this is a while ago. They think it was software RAID. And Disk Warrior rebuilt the directory and saved me. Everything came back. Yeah. So Disk Warrior is fantastic. It's one of those. If you don't need it, be thankful. But if you do need it, it's just a great application. And it's not way out in the front. Everybody's really that aware of it until you need it. So Hedge for video, or just Hedge, like you said, just Hedge, is your main application. Run down a couple of other applications that you have. I noticed there's a couple more on your site.
We used to start out as a single app company. We had this one idea, and that's why it was Hedge for Mac. And then we made a Windows version, because there was a lot of demand for that. And then we branched into Checkpoint. Checkpoint is Hedge's security and validation protocol, basically, which we put into a separate app. It's perfect for instance, if you are on set, you create backups, you ship them off to the editor. The editor doesn't need to copy it, but they want to check the integrity. Then you just use Checkpoint for that. It's verification without copying.
Oh, okay.
And there's Canister. Canister is what Hedge does for regular drives and RAIDs and network drives. Canister does for LTO, which is quite a different thing.
Yes. So I wish I could afford an LTO. I don't have one yet, but boy, I'm tempted. Do they have Thunderbolt 3 ones? I guess they do, right?
Yeah. M-Logic has a great...
M-Logic, that's the one I've been looking at.
Okay.
Yeah. I will get one eventually, but I don't have one yet. I'm still backing up to multiple hard drives, and it's very precarious at any given time.
Checkpoint comes in as well. There are a lot of post-production companies that have this vault with 50 or 100 disks. Let's say you need to grab a drive for a project you did 3 years back. You don't know if it's still in good health. So what you can do, if you use Checkpoint on it in the beginning, or use Hedge to create that drive, then you can recheck it with Checkpoint to make sure all data is still healthy before grabbing the data off of it.
So do you do that in Hedge, are you talking about?
You can do it in Hedge, but you can also do it in Checkpoint if you don't need to copy.
Checkpoint. Okay. So that's really important because my drives, I usually spin them up once every 6 months, and I run Disk Warrior on them, and then I run them through NeoFinder, the database, to update everything. So it keeps them, make sure that they're operational. But I always have at least 2 or 3 separate copies of everything that I do on separate hard drives, besides my RAIDs. My RAIDs are my working projects. But my RAIDs, people get a RAID and they think it's a backup. It's not a backup. It's not at all. So I back up my RAIDs right now I'm using 8 terabyte drives. I buy them must have a dozen of them, and I keep backing things up that way. 2 copies. 2 copies on 2 separate hard drives.
Yeah.
And then with the working copy that I'm working on the RAID. Now, so with Hedge, one of the things that I'm curious about is if I have a camera card and I make multiple copies, and if I don't erase that card and add new material to the card and then bring it back in Hedge, does Hedge know that I've already copied some of the files if I copy to the same destinations?
Yeah, if you put it into the same destination folder, Hedge will detect the duplicates.
It won't recopy them.
Sorry?
It won't recopy the duplicates.
No, only the changes.
Wow, that's a big deal too.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
No, it does, absolutely. It gives you more confidence that everything is, you're not going to overwrite a file or something that's named the same. So of all the camera cards that Hedge deals with, there's different, like I have a GH5 and before that a GH4, so I'm shooting usually H.265 or H.264 10-bit. Are there some camera cards that are more problematic, their file structures, than others? I keep hearing that Red, for example, you can't change the file names when you copy them over and stuff.
Well, you don't want to do that anyway.
Well, I do with my GH4 files.
Yeah, but that's different. Yeah, but with Red, you don't want to do it.
That's what I'm saying. So are certain camera cards are they touchier for copying than others?
No, it's not No, the only thing that is an issue is heat.
Heat?
Yes. And so it's never what is stored on a card that's problematic. It's never the folder structure. That's just simple file system work.
Okay.
The thing that creates issues is either is heat, so people offload in the sun, or a card reader is overheated, or they stack card readers.
Oh, okay.
Or what we are seeing a lot since 2 years is that people are using these USB-C Thunderbolt 3 docks that attach to the side of your MacBook Pro.
Yes.
And those chipsets in there are not built for sustained transfers.
That's very interesting.
But they don't error. They just create corrupt data. And that's a big issue. We add Checkpoint to Hedge itself. What Checkpoint does is that it flashes out those hardware issues.
So that's a great tip. I didn't realize. I do have one of those for my MacBook Pro, but I usually, if I'm doing any transfers, I plug directly in. So with a separate card reader directly into the side. So what about the card readers? Are they prone to overheating and corrupting data?
Well, if you stack them, yes. Or you put them in the sun. But that's not, the card reader itself is never to blame. Card readers are pretty good.
Okay.
Or they're really good. The Sonnet ones or the Red ones or the G-Tech ones. They're really, really good readers.
Okay.
If you start doing things like stacking them or using a shitty hub in between,
right,
or using underpowered peripherals or non-powered peripherals even, that is just asking for problems. But a lot of people don't realize that.
No, it never dawned on me that would be an issue. So I was reading on your website one of the reviews, and tell me if I'm mistaken. Somebody said that they cloned a hard drive with Hedge.
Yeah, you could do that.
So you take a hard drive in the left panel, and you just clone it to the right panel destination.
Yeah. Ignore the OS on purpose. We do not copy over the operating system.
Oh, okay.
It's a system drive.
Okay.
Because there are better tools for that, like Super Duper, Carbon Copy Cloner.
I have both of those.
Exactly.
I buy all kinds of apps, but those are two. I've had Super Duper for years. I've had Carbon Copy Cloner since it used to be free. When the guy worked for Apple, Bob Bombich, is that his name?
Yeah, that's him.
He used to work for Apple, so he did it for free. And then when he left Apple, he charges, and I bought it immediately. So
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting.
We see a lot of customers using Hedge throughout production. So they use it on location to offload the camera cards into multiple destinations. And for instance, a RAID and some travel drives. Then they offload in the studio the RAID to a NAS or a SAN or to another RAID. And they archive from the RAID to either cloud or a drive again.
Okay.
And they Hedge throughout that process.
That's
We
interesting.
have customers that, like some national archives, film institutes that use Hedge to replicate on a SAN itself.
Now, I
So it's
used to,
versatile.
I was the post-production supervisor at the National Archives for 8.5 years down in Washington. You're talking about the one in Europe, probably in England.
Or Washington as well.
Yeah, Washington. I was the post-supervisor down there for 8.5 years. Then I got tired of the drive, 3 hours every day, round trip. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. So, but I still talk to some friends down there as well. So the last update to Final Cut Pro, the big update last November, was Final Cut Pro extensions.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any benefit? Is Hedge looking to do any kind of an extension in Final Cut Pro that you can talk about?
No, not with Hedge itself. No.
Okay.
We looked at doing camera archives within Final Cut Pro.
Okay.
But then you're still limited doing just one copy. And we don't promote creating single copies.
No, that's true.
9% of people just need a single copy because they keep the camera cards around. But we don't want to. We'd like to create opinionated software. So, no, we're not looking at a workflow extension for Hedge. No, we are for PostLab, of course.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. So NAB, you had a big announcement that you guys have acquired PostLab. Now, I interviewed Jasper Singers on Final Cut Pro Radio 3 or 4 months ago. So anybody that wants to listen to that interview can go on FCPRadio.com and look that up. So tell me, first off, exactly what happened there. Why were you interested in acquiring PostLab?
Our company vision has never been to create backup apps. Our vision has been to make life easy for video production throughout the chain. And we naturally started at the start of that process, right, which is backups. And then we did the end of the process with Canister. And we had been thinking about doing something in the middle for a long time. And then Jasper reached out to us for some advice on how he could make turn PostLab into a company, because it was sort of at a dead end financially.
Right.
And our talks went so well, and there was such a vibe going on with him and the team that we thought, well, maybe this works better if Jasper joins us, and together with Philippe.
Right.
And if it makes sense to put in the portfolio, and if we can build on his technology as well, and there were so many synergies there that we easily could put out a whole roadmap for another 5 or 10 years with PostLab and Hedge.
Wow.
And so there are a lot of exciting things coming, which go way beyond the scope of what people now consider PostLab's feature set.
Huh. So is the actual integration live yet, or is it in beta, or?
No, we were currently working on the PostLab cloud.
Okay.
So it used to be fairly technical to set up PostLab because
exactly.
We took all that out. We made it very easy. We've been very busy building a new client on top of that cloud, and we have a early access program.
Okay.
That we're currently testing with, and we're rolling that out next month.
Okay.
And we'll launch if that goes well, and it does until now. Then we'll launch in a few months from now officially.
Is it for anything? Does it work for Final Cut Pro 10 and Premiere?
Right now, of course, Final Cut Pro 10.
Okay.
Because that's what it was designed for.
That's what I thought.
In progress. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Premiere is a big focus right now.
Okay. So is there going to be any Final Cut Pro extension for that part?
We'd like to, yeah.
Okay. So that's one area that you might have an extension for.
Yeah.
Because that would make sense.
To do that, yeah.
So do you have, you update Hedge several times per year? You have bigger updates, right?
Yeah.
Have you announced one from NAB?
We launched the Frame.io integration.
Okay.
NAB. We have an update coming within a few weeks again with Smart Resume. which allows you. We learned that if transfers fail, it's mostly due to disconnecting hard drives, overheating hard drives as well. Somebody unplugs the power.
Sure.
Things like that.
Sure.
And Smart Resume makes it super easy to resume those transfers automatically with duplicate detection. Pick up where you left.
So suppose suppose somebody unplugged it during a transfer. Suppose the last file was corrupted. It'll make a new copy of that file rather than use the corrupted one.
Of course.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, not of course, because that's something that maybe the Finder wouldn't do.
No, Finder doesn't do it, but we need to.
Right. No, you saying, when you said of course, I'm thinking, no, that's not of course to me using the Finder. If I used the Finder, I wouldn't know that. I would probably delete the last file regardless.
Yep.
And make a copy. But you do it automatically. You can tell that the file was corrupted.
Yeah. And we clean it up.
And you clean it up. So that's another great feature.
Yeah.
These are all features that these features like that, they sneak in, but they're not obvious sometimes because your interface for Hedge is very simple. You have a left.
Deliberate strategy. We have an internal veto on new interface elements.
Okay.
And we strive to add new features without you noticing it. And only when you need it, you'll go looking for it, and then you'll find it.
No,
it's a concept called progressive disclosure.
Right.
It's a UX concept, and it helps you keep things simple.
Well, that's what I like. But I do like having the option, though, of digging in. Sometimes Final Cut Pro is a little too simple.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can dig in. There are a lot of settings, and even beyond settings, there are under the hood settings, and we have an API coming, which you can use to automate Hedge. So we have, for instance, a lot of media managers that want to build automated ingest stations with Hedge, delegate card readers, and a Mac Mini, and they want to use a fully automated solution, and that's what you can do as well with Hedge.
Okay.
You'll never notice if you're a regular user, but if you're a power user, you can use that and still use the same Hedge.
Okay.
So a separate version. You don't need something with more knobs and whistles.
Right.
Still the same version.
So tell me about the Frame.io integration. What is going on there? I'm trying to think of the scenario where I'd be. How would you use Hedge with Frame.io?
I think it's twofold. We see users are using Frame.io regardless of the whole review platform. They use it just to shuttle drives as a cloud storage.
Okay.
It's a super easy and fast way to get data into the cloud and out of the cloud again.
Okay.
Very user-friendly. And their upload speeds are amazing. They did a great job on that.
How do they do that?
Good engineering.
Okay. But you're still dependent on the internet.
Of course. Yeah, but that's always the bottleneck. But if you're on fiber or 5G maybe, you'll be sure to get the most out of your connection. Just like with Hedge, we'll make sure you get the most out of your drives.
Okay.
IO app makes sure you get the most out of your connection. And we wanted to make use of that because that aligns with our vision of, speed.
Right.
And then we thought, how can we make it super easy for you to have access to all your different projects in Frame.io? So what we do is that we ask Frame.io which projects a user has, and we show them as discrete drives within Hedge. So you can use them as discrete destinations.
Well, that's pretty clever.
The use case here will be, for instance, you're offloading to your RAID.
Right.
And a single Frame.io project. And either you offload everything to it, or you just offload your proxies, for instance.
Okay. So that's pretty clever then. I mean, that's, if you said projects and Frame.io will appear as RAID or as cards in Hedge.
As destinations, yeah.
As destinations.
And only if you have Frame.io installed. So it's unobtrusive. Again, so if you don't have Frame.io, you won't be bothered by it. And if you have, you'll see it.
Right, exactly. So are you a shooter yourself?
No, actually an audio engineer. I used to mix bands.
Okay. Live or studio?
Yeah, live. And I was a mastering engineer after that.
Okay.
And as a sound engineer, I was asked to work on this Dutch documentary, which was a live recording, 15 cameras, 15 DSLRs,
Wow.
12 shoots, and then 6 days in a row. And they had, there was a lot of data. And I noticed there was this loader that was completely overworked. And I wasn't too busy, and he was very busy. So I started helping him out in my downtime, and wrote a little script for him, and then another one, and then another one. And then he asked me the next season, can you just do it? And I brought on a friend for the audio engineering. And then that turned into a 1,000-line AppleScript in the end. That went into
wow.
Overnight with transcoding. We built our own DNX transcoder, timecode sync. And then the show ended after 5 seasons. And we were like, well, let's try using this. And let's try making it into a product. But that product was way too big to build. So we started out at the beginning at backups. And that's how you become, that's how you go from a live mixer to a backup software.
That's the reason. That's interesting. Yeah, my background is audio as well. I had a recording studio in the 90s, and because of the recording studio, I had my own band, and we needed a PA system, so I bought a PA system, and then when we weren't playing, I'd take the PA system out and do other bands, so I did live sound as well. Yeah. So
that's every PA company started.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, even though I was the post supervisor at the National Archives, I was the most advanced audio person, so I did all the live mixing as well for anything that was a high priority event. Some of the smaller ones I wasn't, but if it was a high priority, I'd be there doing that. So plus I like it. I like audio a lot.
It's nice.
I use Logic, and I just recently rebought Digital Performer after not using it for like 3 years. But DP10 came out, and I figured I'd give it a shot again for the upgrade price. So I'm getting reacquainted with that, but I'm still a Logic person. I use that all the time. I use it for my audio in Final Cut if it's more complex. When it gets to be more complex or more sophistication, or if it's a long project, an hour long, hour and a half, I use Logic for the audio. And on my podcast, Final Cut Pro Radio, I do that in Logic as well. What about editing? Video editing?
Much better. No. Well, yeah, sound editing a bit, dialogue editing.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
That's interesting. So your roadmap for Hedge, is there anything you can talk about coming up in the next year that listeners would like to know? Well,
don't pin me down on the next year. We do about 6 to 8 major updates each year.
That's a lot.
Yeah, we like that. It keeps you focused on what to build. And we do actually do about 20 updates a year, but minor ones.
Right.
Sometimes even weekly. Just with minor performance changes or little additions. Well, the roadmap right now we're working on is, of course, Smart Resume, as I just told you. That's about finished. Next up is filtering. So blacklisting certain file extensions. Renaming. That's going to be a big one. Renaming files upon ingest. And then adding presets to that, maybe.
Wait a minute. Renaming files on ingest.
Yeah.
I do that now. But you can't do that with red files?
Well, you don't want to do that with red files.
Okay, so there's some places you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
With red. Anybody else you're not supposed to do it with?
Well, I wouldn't. You can do it with image sequences, but please leave the incrementer intact.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah.
In general, I'd say if it's H.264, 65, codecs like that, it's fine. If you shoot RAW, don't touch it.
Oh, so RAW don't touch and red don't touch.
Like it.
Right. So do you work, does Hedge have any codecs it doesn't work with?
No, it's file-based, so it works with everything.
So ProRes RAW, Blackmagic RAW, no
Yeah.
problem. Red RAW.
Mac supports it, we support it. And on
Okay.
Windows, the same thing.
Okay.
There's
Now,
one exception in camera land, that's if you use Phantom Flex. That doesn't have a file system, just like codecs, for instance.
okay.
It's terrible. And I fully recommend using Phantom Fuse from Ben Hagen.
Okay.
It's a great software that mounts the Phantom Sign Cinemax as a drive, and then you can use it in Hedge.
Okay.
So you need a little intermediate for that. But apart from that, Hedge eats everything.
That's very interesting. So we have a comment on YouTube. Eugene Lauren says, more info on the post-lab roadmap. He says it's super important app for Final Cut Pro 10, in his opinion.
Well, to give you an idea, we think PostLab is not a Final Cut Pro app. We think it's a app that will allow everybody in the post-production process to work together, because there's a screw-up guarantee in there that you can always roll back to whichever version existed before. You can comment on features, you can comment on new additions. You can even share your media proxies or even RAWs if you want. And it has been very Final Cut Pro focused, but we will be adding other NLEs, DAWs hopefully, because we definitely like to do something with audio. Well,
that's interesting, yeah.
But we don't know yet how much we can actually support. But Premiere has a big focus. That's something I can tell. Something else which we find very important is a very Hedge-easy-like proxy workflow. So flipping projects from offline to online workflows.
Okay.
PostLab already detects missing media and relinks media for you. But the idea is that it will generate those proxies for you as well.
Okay.
Except if they exist in Frame.io. PostLab is a complement to Frame.io, not a replacement.
Okay.
And the idea is that if something exists within Frame.io, PostLab can access it and vice versa. So either Frame.io can do your proxies or we can do the proxies. You can share them, you can upload to Frame.io if you want. It's a very tight, there will be a very tight integration with Frame.io.
That's great, because I know proxies are very important for anything online, any working with stuff online, just to lower the bandwidth necessary and things. So.
Yeah, and Windows, of course.
Right. I use them in Final Cut. I shoot with my GH5. I shoot 10-bit, usually 422 video. So the files are pretty big. So I can do them natively on my 2017 iMac, unless I get into multicam and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it'll slow down. So then that's when I do proxy if I'm doing a multicam clip or whatever with 10-bit, because I shoot 10-bit all the time now.
Let's say, for instance, you have an iMac Pro and you don't need proxies, but you want to hand off the work to someone else, a freelance editor. And you can share you check in the project to PostLab. The other person gets an invite, he downloads it and says, I want to work with proxies. And then the proxies are generated. Or they're generated on your end and you upload them, or you send him a drive and he generates them. It's a hybrid system. And it detects if the originals are there or if proxies are there, if anything is missing.
That's great. I like proxies. I wish Final Cut had I hope Final Cut's going to give us more options with the proxy workflow. Right now, you can't relink proxies in Final Cut. You can. I've done it manually.
Yeah.
By going in and changing the file path and stuff, but you can't. You can relink media in Final Cut that works most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. But I'd like to see the ability to relink proxies in Final Cut so it's easier, so you are more confident it's going to work.
Well, PostLab handles that for you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You guys have made a solution, but Final Cut still needs little work on the proxy workflow. A lot of people want that. So what about, you mentioned Premiere and Final Cut, what about Resolve?
Well, Resolve has very good collaboration tools inside already.
Okay.
And we haven't heard people complaining about that, actually. So there's no super high need for it, but
Okay.
it's the most, apart from Premiere, the most requested app to support. So we will be looking into it, of course.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. I went to the Black Magic press conference on Monday morning at NAB. That was certainly interesting. There were dozens and dozens of people. There was a lot of people there, a lot more than I realized. I streamed it live when I was there, and it's bigger than it looks, I think, because there was people behind me, in front of me. Yeah.
They are so fast in developing.
Yeah.
They're still as if they're a very small company.
Well, they are, but you are too. You just said you had 20 updates in a year, small and large.
Yeah.
That's a lot of updates.
Yeah. Yeah, it's focus, I think. It helps. We have a great team, and we're growing fast. That helps as well.
Okay. But don't grow too fast.
Well, as long as there are people like what we're doing and it makes sense for us to do, then we'll keep adding people, of course.
Well, that's true. Quality people, that's absolutely true. I know that Apple lost, well, they didn't lose. One of their Final Cut Pro people left and went, he just left, and then he's working with LumaForge on the board of directors or something like that, some kind of a,
yep.
So, recently, and then they acquired Bill Davis from D.C., Virginia. They took his place. It's always somebody coming and somebody going over there.
Yep.
Have you been at any of the creative summits, Final Cut Pro creative summits?
No. No, because we're in Amsterdam, we try to focus on IBC and
IBC.
NAB. I will be attending Cinegear,
Okay.
but not with just me. We'll be there. We'll be showing some very nice projects, skunkwork projects. So I cannot talk too much about it. But if you're at Cinegear, and then if you see me, let me know.
There you go.
We have some stuff going on that's much larger than what we're doing right now, even larger than PostLab. So.
Okay. So I'm a big fan of, besides I have Hedge, I also have Kino. Are you familiar with Robert Kruger?
Yeah, I just talked to him this afternoon.
Oh, did you?
Great software.
It's I love Kino. I've been using it for years because it does so many things. So, one of the features I use all the time is you put multiple markers on a clip, and you can export stills from all those markers, batch export stills, before the stuff even leaves the camera card. You don't have to import anything. I use that feature all the time.
Yeah, it's a great toolbox. There's so many stuff in there.
And you were talking about renaming files. He added that recently. It's a paste and rename, which I use all the time now. Since I'm on a GH5 and I'm using H.264 files, I copy them, go to my destination, and I paste, rename. I can rename them sequentially, whatever I want. Mm-hmm. I always keep the original file name with the GH4, GH5, but it's a dash. It's my name dash the original file name, so I can always go back to it if I had to.
That's a good workflow.
Yeah, but I I use Find organization all the time. I organize in folders and stuff before I make a Final Cut Pro library. Sometimes people get confused and say, well, you shouldn't be changing things. No, I do it before I make the library. So when I import the folders, I get keyword collections in Final Cut from all the folders. So it's pre-organized. It's automatic for me. Very interesting. So you're going to have an exciting year, it sounds like. You're going to make any big announcements at IBC?
Yeah.
That's what I figured.
Right.
Did you like NAB this year?
Oh, yeah. It was great. Nice weather.
Yes.
And a great crowd. We're always in the back of South Lower, and that's sort of the easygoing part of NAB where the nice stuff is happening. It's a nice vibe. That's
fantastic. Yeah, I've been there for 3 years. This was my third year. Prior to that, I didn't go because I just stayed home and watched the news on the internet. But 2 years ago, Apple started presenting. They had their own presentation in 2017, 2018. Now, they didn't present in 2019, but they were still there, obviously. The team was still there. They probably talked to you guys. I know they talked to Kino. I was there when they came up in Frame.io and stuff. They have, the meetings. But I went there. I go there for Final Cut Pro stuff. That's the reason. If there's Final Cut Pro news happening, then I'm interested in being there. Other than that, I can watch it at home, because it is a bit of a hike for me. I've come from the East Coast to the West Coast. That's why I have to travel. But it's always been very pleasant. So maybe I'll go again next year.
Yeah. We'll definitely be there again.
Is that right? How many years have you been there?
This was our third year as well.
Okay, your third year as well. It's so big. It's so big. I know I make plans to see certain things and certain people, and it's just like some of them just don't happen because people have no idea, if they haven't been there, how much walking it is to get from one hall to the next hall to the next hall. And it's just a lot of organization and planning. So
I rarely leave South Lower, and even that is killing my legs.
Right, exactly. That's you're of course you have your booth and stuff, and you have to talk to customers and vendors and whatever. But yeah, it was fun this last time. Every time I go there, I kind of learn new things. I always say, next year I'm going to do this. So next year I got to write it down so I don't forget. Sometimes I forget between years.
It's amazing that you can, even if you're focused on a super small niche like Final Cut Pro or LED lighting or filters for even, then you can still fill a whole week there.
Oh, absolutely.
3 days and just focus on one thing.
But I wouldn't say that Final Cut Pro is a small niche.
Compared to NAB, it is.
Well, what I mean is to compared to NLEs.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, because they announced 2.5 million in 2018 seats, Apple did, and they didn't announce anything in 2019 yet, but I presume it's 3 million plus.
The user base is huge.
That's what
If you look at what is going on at NAB outside of NLEs, it's so huge.
Yes. And I'm always interested in, like right now, I'm interested in if the GH6 comes out sometime, because that's the camera that I'd be interested in. I had the GH4, I loved it. GH5 is a huge step up. I love the form factor. I love the fact that it's small and compact, and I can do 10-bit 422 internally. I can record that internal to the camera. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it'll be able to do ProRes RAW. Don't know. Internally. I know it can do it via HDMI externally to the Atomos recorders, but I go small as much as I can. Mm-hmm. So I'd be very, very pleased if somehow the GH6 does ProRes RAW internally. That's what I want. Because there's only one camera that does internal ProRes RAW now, and that's the DJI drone camera. Everything else is external with Atomos. So that'll be very interesting. Is there anything else you want to cover? What about any other apps you want to talk about?
No, I'm pretty good.
We talked about Checkpoint. We talked about Canister.
Well, Canister is a niche product. LTO has been very technical, always IT focused, and Logic reached out to us asking, "Can't you do for LTO what you did for regular backups with Hedge?" And it's been a huge project for us to make that happen and to work around all the limitations of LTO. And we're still working on it a lot. And it's starting to grow on us.
Okay.
We're adding features in there, and it's a bit like Hedge was in the first year. That's where Canister is right now.
Okay.
And it's maturing, and we're adding more and more to it. But LTO is such a different ballgame. It's completely opposite of how regular drives work.
No, we had LTO at the National Archives. We had a big system, but I think that was LTO. What is it up to? 7 now? Maybe it was LTO 4 or 5. I forget which it was. And they have a big robotic system up at the film archives at Archives 2 in College Park. They have a big system up there. But we didn't, I don't know what we used. We used CatDV, I think.
Yeah, at that point, if at that size, then you start using a MAM, of course, because you need to retrieve data a lot and often.
Yeah.
What we see happening is that a lot more insurance companies are demanding LTOs be made on location, off camera, directly. That's what Canister is for. So you get this M-tape desktop unit with Thunderbolt instead of this Windows system with a SAS or SCSI device.
Right.
And you need some simple software to work with it. That's what Canister is for.
Okay.
It's not meant to manage all those large libraries.
Right. So one of the things that I liked about when I bought Hedge was you can buy the actual software.
Yeah.
And if you want updates, you would buy updates each given year. But your software doesn't stop working like a subscription model that that Adobe uses, which I really don't like. I don't know if people realize that, but the software will actually stop working if you stop paying. It's not like you can keep the version that you have. You can't do that. Adobe, they actually, your software will not work unless you pay them for the rest of your life. Yeah. And I really, really dislike that model.
Yeah, so do we. We think it doesn't, well, for desktop software it doesn't work. Subscriptions work if there's a actual cost to using the software for the vendor, like a cloud service.
Right.
And of course, updates cost money. It's very expensive to build software like Hedge.
Right.
Very expensive.
Right.
And we've been searching for a long time for a good model to reflect on that.
Right.
We also like to people only to renew, as we call it, to get another year of updates.
Right.
Based on features we add.
Sure.
And we have a lot of people that just do it every year because they want to support our development and they like the development.
Exactly.
But we also have a lot of people that say, hey, I'm fine with how Hedge is right now. And we're totally okay with that. If you're good, you don't need to spend money on it.
Well, I don't know what software I don't spend money on. I mean, I support everybody that I've mentioned. I always buy their updates. Pathfinder's another one that I use. I've been using Pathfinder for years. Are you familiar with that one?
Yep.
It's a Finder substitute. It's much more sophisticated than just the regular Finder in Mac OS. All right.
I think that there's an issue in a good way with software that costs money just once, like a Carbon Copy Cloner, for instance, or ChronoSync. Those people that work on it full time, and they put in a lot of effort, and they still, you're not able to send them more money, even if you want to. Well, yeah, you can buy a new license just to get money, but there's no feedback cycle there that way. I think it's a more mature thing, a more honest way of starting a conversation if you can have this recurring way of upgrading without forcing you into it. Because forcing you into it doesn't work nowadays. I think business-wise it would be a pretty good decision to go subscriptions, but ethically we don't want to do that.
Right. Well, the subscriptions, like I said, I don't mind if I like the software and I want to use it, as long as the software doesn't stop working if I don't subscribe. I think Adobe's the only one that does that, and I abandoned them years ago because of that. It's terrible. I mean, people don't realize when you're 80 years old and you're retired, if you don't keep paying, your software's not going to work.
Yeah.
And then recently they had the issue where all the old copies, they can't use them anymore.
Yeah.
Because of whatever their legal situation is with that. So that's another issue. It's pain.
Yeah. It's a struggle also for them, I think. They don't...
No, I understand.
No developer likes doing cutoffs like that. We had the issue with High Share, actually. The initial High Share betas were so bad on the disk I/O front, we had to limit Hedge to not being able to run on High Share. And users were quite bummed out about it because they updated their OS and then started Hedge and they couldn't use Hedge.
Oh.
they needed a newer version to make that happen. And luckily with Mojave, everything changed, and it was very well, so we could lift that blocker. And we hope it stays that way. But sometimes it's just out of your hands. It's
No, I
especially there's
understand.
nowadays so much interconnecting pieces of software. For instance, you use a typical stack would be that you use Codex, Device Manager, together with Paragon and Hedge, and maybe Phantom Fuse at the same time.
Okay.
And if one of those apps has an issue, you'll need to update all apps to get around that. And that might mean you need to pay 4 times to fix an issue with you. And that's a pain, but it's also not, there's not really a different way of doing that. So it's a struggle even for software developers. Ideally, we would give everything away for free and keep working on Hedge, but that's...
No, I don't expect people to work for free, the same as I don't expect my people to expect me to work for free.
Well, ideally, it's a bit hippie-like, but ideally, if a community would support software that the community needs, then people would work on that on a non-profit basis.
Right.
And most developers would be very happy with that.
Right.
It's just not feasible because then you get design by committee, or you get a blackout from feature bloat, or
right.
So you need opinionated software, and for that you'll need a economic system.
So do things like a new Mac Pro excite you?
Yes and no. I really like the trash can philosophy.
Okay.
I love it. I think it's a great machine if you don't need to extend it or replace things. And of course it's underpowered nowadays. But when it came out, I love the design philosophy. And so yes, I can be very, very excited about the opinionated hardware choices Apple makes.
Okay.
On the other hand, of course, it can be a complete pain if it limits you in your workflow.
Right.
For instance, the way they built Touch ID on the Mac by using the watch philosophy and the watch chipset, that's brilliant stuff.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can be a pain in your workflow if you need more speed. So I'm sure they will come up with something that blows everybody away.
Well,
and it will be extremely expensive. And then it's hoping that the strategy works for years from after releasing that.
So everybody is saying there's going to be the Mac Pro preview at WWDC in like 2.5 weeks.
Let's hope so.
Well, everybody's acting like it's a given. I mean, to me, it seems logical. In 2013, they previewed the Mac Pro at WWDC. Came out later that year, but everybody's like, Apple did announce this is a 2019 product.
Well, they actually said it's not 2018.
No, but they came out subsequently and said it's not 2018. It is a 2019 product. They absolutely said that.
Right.
So 2019 is here. So we have 7 more months left. So, but WWDC, please, Apple, let us see what it looks like. At least give us a form factor. I mean, Phil Schiller can come out there and say, what did he say last time? Can't innovate my ass. I think that's what he said in 2013. So let's see. Can't innovate my ass too.
Well, they can innovate. I'm sure they have amazing stuff in the works.
Well, they should.
But it doesn't make it to market for reasons we cannot grasp or don't know about. It's the same thing with the Adobe decision to kill off the old versions. That's not trying to bully your users. There's a good reason for that, and it's not always possible to state the reason behind something.
Right.
And I think a lot of users do not get the crazy amount of work that goes into getting a product to market besides getting to get the product to work at all. Making software is one thing, getting it to market in a feasible way is completely different.
Sure.
And so, yeah, Apple is the innovation mainstay in our current design, in our environments.
Right, right,
And a lot of other companies are catching up, but they are not innovating yet.
right.
Screens whatsoever. That's fine.
Well, I'm in the market for a new Mac. I have a 2017 iMac that I'm on right now, but I need 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports because my audio interface uses one of the ports by itself, and there's no way it just takes up one of the ports. On the 2017 and the 2019, I was surprised, 2019 iMac, there's only 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports.
Yeah.
There's 4 on the Mac Mini. And
Yeah,
there's 4 on the iMac Pro, and there's 4 on the MacBook Pro, but only 2 on the iMac. So I guess they use the same motherboard or something. Who the heck knows? But I need 4. I need 3, so I have to have, the 4. So whatever I get, it'll either be an iMac Pro, or I'm waiting for the Mac Pro to come out. There's no rush, but the next one will have to have 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. So I'm sure the Mac Pro will have at least 4. I think the last one had 6 or 8 or something.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm completely convinced that everybody at Apple understands the needs of the pro community, and they really want to support that. But there are other decisions to be made as well.
No, of course.
I think sometimes the community is way too harsh on that because they don't understand the decision-making process that you need to get something to market.
Right. Absolutely. All right, we've had a good talk. Over an hour and 6 minutes, hour and 7 minutes. And we still have daylight over there.
Ish.
Ish. Well, you look good. Maybe the camera's adjusting.
In the dark.
Yeah, maybe the camera's adjusting. I sure appreciated Paul.
Thanks for having me, Richard.
And we will talk again. Thank you very much.
Soon. Bye.
Bye.